kind of Emily set there now, because then if you find it really boring, then I apologise. The idea of I'm Mark Clayton. I'm the safeguarding lead at CAP. Been here 5.5 years now. There wasn't a safeguarding lead before that, so it was a new post. And I think we've really developed safeguarding. Just for example, when I started, we were recording about 3 or 4 incidents a month on we didn't have CPOMs then, we had just spreadsheets, and we were recording 3 or 4 incidents a month, and we do between 200 and 250 now a month, which is absolutely phenomenal. And it's not that our thresholds are lower, we're going to talk about thresholds, it's just that we've got really good debt centres, and our debt advisors here are really good at identifying and recording issues. So the idea of today, Emily's going to forward the slides as we need them. The idea is that you're here, you'll have different experiences. So it's for debt centre managers and coaches, I should have said. So we do life skills and job clubs managers and coaches tomorrow. And you'll all have different experience and knowledge of safeguarding. You might have done the training, hopefully you've done some training, our training, but you might have done other training as well. But everybody's different. There will be people who have maybe had some experience actually in the safeguarding world, like myself, and others that are quite new to it. But I think you probably all have a basic understanding. We're not going to go through the training again. That's not the idea. The idea of the workshop is to explore a lot more around risk, risk to clients, risk to yourselves, risk assessments, key things that are going to crop up, things to look out for. And we'll also, hopefully, I'll just go on CPOMs towards the end and just show you, if you were logging an incident, how to do that. I know it's probably in the training, but it's a lot easier just to show people. So that's the focus. Is we'll go on to the next slide. We're gonna look at really kind of look at the expectations of you, and what kind of we mean by risk, and what you're being asked to look at, and how to do that. Say some of you will have good experience of that, some will have a bit of experience, some it might be a new thing, but that's okay. I always say to people, it's not rocket science. Sometimes people can get anxious about safeguarding, but it's really, actually, when you pare it back, it's really, really straightforward in some ways. If you've got any questions, just do your hands up, and if you can't get, me and Emily will both look out for that. But if you can't get our attention, just unmute and shout at me. It's supposed to be interactive, and there will be a couple of tasks for you to do that I'll ask you to feedback on, and they say ask anything as we go along. Okay, thanks, Emily. So what we're expecting of you as debt centre managers and coaches is, what we're not expecting is people to be experts, and we're not expecting you to be social workers. Now, if you've talked to other debt centre managers and coaches, they'll tell you that sometimes it feels like they're social workers. And I talk to local CAP staff all the time, and it does feel like they're working as a social worker sometimes. But we're not social services, and we're not expecting you to be social workers. There's other people doing other jobs like that. So all we're expecting is that people will have some awareness of key issues, that you will have some knowledge of safeguarding procedures. Key thing is you'll know who your safeguarding officer is for your CAP debt centre, for your partner church, and that you're prepared to share concerns that are disclosed to you, or that you identify yourself. That's the expectation. We're not saying that we need to be anything more than that. Okay, very, very briefly, because we probably touch on this in the training, what do we mean by safeguarding at CAP? Now, in terms of safeguarding, I always show this. We know that children are a predominant area that we look at when we're doing safeguarding. We don't tend to work with children. But that leaves nearly 80% of the population that are adults. And if we look at the next slide, of those, only 1.5% of the population are what we term adults at risk. An adult at risk, we used to call them vulnerable adults, but we don't use that term now. Adults at risk are basically adults that do have some barriers, but they're adults that are entitled to receive social care. That's the definition. And that means that they may have some barriers to protecting themselves. So in theory, we wouldn't be having to safeguard many people if we're mainly working with adults, and the majority of adults are not adults at risk. However, you will find that most of the adults that you work with are likely to have some issues, and they do need some help and support. It may not be on that statutory safeguarding level where you would contact social services, but it's on that wider, we differentiate between statutory safeguarding and wellbeing. And statutory safeguarding where you would ring the police or ring social services, and kind of all the other issues that we couch under safeguarding, but they're more wellbeing issues in terms of safeguarding. So we have quite a broad spread of issues that we look at because of that. We don't need to do, we've kind of talked about that. So a little task, this is to get you started. I would like you to look at the things in the green, the statements in the green boxes, and have a think about whether you think they are definitely something that would be safeguarding, definitely not something that's safeguarding, or might be safeguarding, and just have a think about that for 30 seconds. Then I'm going to ask you to volunteer to unmute, pick one and say where you think it should land. If you feel it, and maybe why. So if you feel it's only maybe safeguarding, why would it be safeguarding, why not? Rather than me telling you, I thought you could tell me. So when you're ready, just volunteer and unmute. Go on, Hannah, thank you.
Stealing from an adult with learning disabilities would be safeguarding.
Because
they're vulnerable, but it's theft.
Yeah.
Yeah. They couldn't really do much about it.
Yeah, because they're an adult at risk, probably that there's barriers there for them to be able to protect themselves. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Amanda?
Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, using your elderly parent's bank card could be maybe safeguarding, depending whether you've got permission to or not.
Absolutely. I've put that one in because you will find, surprise, surprise, that's quite, we get issues around that raised with us at CAP far more than maybe other agencies would, because we're working with people's bank statements and their finances. So we pick up on a lot of these things. So we do get a lot of concerns raised about where other people are using our clients' bank cards and have control of them and things. So yeah, but it would depend on obviously permission and what it was being used for. Laura?
Hitting a partner would be safeguarding.
Yeah. Straightforward. Domestic abuse, and obviously we know now that children are deemed victims, direct victims of domestic abuse as well. So where there's children in the family, that's an added concern as well. Amanda, sorry, yeah.
Psychosis. So psychosis can be in between. It's a maybe safeguarding, depending on whether or not a person's in active psychosis, or it could be safeguarding if they are in psychosis, and then obviously their actions and behaviours are causing harm to others or themselves.
That's a brilliant answer. Yeah, it's absolutely. We have had clients that have been hearing voices telling them to harm people. So obviously, if you're visiting them as a debt centre manager or a coach with your befriender, then that's really important to know, and work with mental health services. Hopefully, they'd be involved to make sure that risk is managed for yourselves as well as the client. But equally so, there's people with psychosis that it's being managed with medication and they've had, and it's quite low risk. So yeah, it would depend on the severity of their situation, their mental health. Yeah. Any others?
I think not giving a 10-year-old a mobile is not a safeguarding.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a choice, isn't it?
Most
You
of
know,
them
the
I'd say
10-year-old.
are.
Yeah. Amanda?
Alcohol addiction, I'm going to say a bit like psychosis. It depends whether whether it's been diagnosed, recognised, whether they're getting support. So I'm just going to say maybe safeguarding.
Yeah, so we would definitely, just thinking ahead to when we're looking at CPOMs, and thresholds, at CAP, we would definitely record everything around addiction. So if you've got a client that's either told us at the outset or tells you at the first visit or subsequently that they're struggling with addiction, or they previously have, even if they're in recovery now, whether that's alcohol, gambling, whether that's around drugs, then we record that. So we record it as an issue. It might not be a live issue, as in they may be in recovery, but we would record it. Obviously, whether it actually needs some action depends on where they're at, who's at risk, and whether they want any help. Is obviously a key factor in that. A lot of people have addictions and manage that. Some people need support. So our key things are always about looking at support, and but it's certainly something we record because it's got the potential to be an issue. So even if somebody is saying, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, but I've been in recovery for a year and been getting support, we still log that because it's good to have that information. Any others? Anybody wants to comment on? No, that's fine. Amanda's back. Go on.
So I'll go for the hat trick. Suicide attempt as safeguarding.
Yeah, we would always record that as because a suicide attempt, somebody's at risk. Obviously, if it's a child, that's a serious safeguarding matter for agencies to be involved in. Adults have a right to make decisions about their life, and including ending their own life. But we would obviously, if somebody's indicating that they're at risk from suicide, then that's something we're wanting to flag and check that there's safety measures in place. Helen?
Misuse of power of attorney safeguarding.
It definitely is. In fact, we had a couple where it came to light that it could be our client that is subject of the power of attorney, and it's been misused by the person who's got the authority, or we've had ones where it's our client who has the power of attorney over somebody else. And there was one where we've had recently where our client had the power of attorney over his mother, who's in a care home, and he was using all her money as well as his benefits for his own, for his purely on his needs. We'd evidence that through the budget and our assessment. And so in theory, then we've got a duty to report that to the can't remember it's some office that I can't remember. There's the public protection office. There's somewhere that which actually says government regulations say we're supposed to report that. So it would definitely be a safeguarding issue. Yeah. Hannah, is that still you, or have we done Hannah? Or got Luke? Office of Public Guardian. Thank you, Lucy. It's a set form you have to fill in. I think we'll move on from that. You get so what we're saying from that is there will be, if you want to move the slides on, hopefully, yeah. I would say, is this black or white? It's not. It's grey, because on the next slide we say some things are really clearly safeguarding, like sexual assaults, physical assaults, especially if they're of children or adults at risk. Some things are clearly not, like not giving a mobile phone. phone, a 10-year-old a mobile phone, but often, and especially the things that we'll come across, they're that grey area. They might be, and they might not, and that leads into context. Context is key. I always think it for us. So that was the idea. That so when you're looking at safeguarding, I say there's kind of key questions to ask her. Is there harm or the risk of harm? Does it involve a child or an adult at risk? If it's yes, that's statutory safeguarding, and we have a duty, a responsibility. We have to refer that anyway. But even if the answer's no, we still then to be saying, but is there a person that needs protection or help? And that's where kind of a lot of our work comes in, that will flag up. So I'm going to think about risks, move on to thinking about risks, and think about what are the possible risks. Are they low, high? Are there factors which reduce and increase risk? So when we're looking at risk, safeguarding training advises people, we always say, you're not detectives, you're not there to investigate. And I always say, we're not social services. They go out and do deep assessments. But that's different from getting more information. And there's this idea now of professional curiosity. Have people come across that? Anybody come across? You all seem very knowledgeable. So I think some of you have probably heard this concept before. The idea of professional curiosity is something that social workers and other agencies talk openly about now. So if you look at the next slide, I think I've got some definitions I lifted. So it's where practitioner, that could be yourselves, you explore and proactively try to understand what's happening within a family rather than making assumptions and taking a single source of information. So it's basically saying it's okay to ask more questions. So if somebody discloses something to you, in the past, sometimes we feel like maybe we're not supposed to ask too many questions. Yeah, we're not there to do an assessment, but it's okay to ask more questions. So if somebody says that they're feeling fearful, then it's okay. Can you tell me a bit more about that? You know, can you tell me who and what you're fearful of? If somebody says that indicates that somebody may be at risk to them, then it's okay to say, well, can you tell me a bit more about that? Usually people will, if people have started to disclose something, it's usually because they want to share something. So that they might need a bit of encouragement, but it's okay to encourage that. And if people say, I don't want to talk about that anymore at the moment, then that's fine. That's somebody's choice. But maybe you could say, maybe we could come back to that another time or later on. So yeah, so this idea, it's okay to ask a bit more questions. Yeah, you can move on, Emily, that's great. So in terms of looking at risk, we're just looking at brief overviews. We're not doing detailed risk assessment. When I was social working, we'd write huge 30, 40 page reports for the courts, all about risk. We don't need to do that. We're just looking at a brief overview. So we're thinking about what's the risk of harm, how serious and immediate it is it? So for example, sometimes you will get a message from a client or speak to a client, we'll get a call from them indicating that they are at immediate risk, and that might be from self-harm, it might be from harm from somebody else. And ultimately what we can do is make a 999 call. We have occasionally needed to do that both here at Bradford, but also we know local centres that have had to make a 999 call. So there's kind of how is it a serious or immediate risk? But then if it's not, then looking at, we've got time then to look at risk assessments and kind of what things maybe increase the risk and what things reduce the risk. So if you've got, for example, somebody who's indicating they may be at risk of self-harm, then we can look at kind of the context of that and what things are in place to reduce or increase risk. So I always give this example. If when you drive and you use a mobile phone, that increases the risk to you and other people. If you wear a seatbelt, it decreases the risk. And safeguarding is the same. There's things that increase risk, things that are likely to reduce the risk. So we've got this risk barometer on the next one. This is another little interactive one for you to have a read of and think about. So if you look at the green boxes again and have a think about, in general terms, do you think that issue is likely to increase the risk to somebody who's maybe indicated they may be at risk of something, or reduce the risk? And it could be for any whether it's domestic abuse, self-harm or suicide, whether it's about financial abuse, whether it's about physical abuse, and anything really, all forms of harm. These are some of the risk factors. If we were looking at a client and thinking, what level do we think the risk is at, then these are kind of some really helpful areas to think about. So when people want to volunteer again, say, I knew Amanda would be in there. Star pupil today. Thanks, Amanda.
Well, I wouldn't go that far now. So now you've made me lose now. So social isolation, and that definitely kind of increases the risk. Quite often, people have mental health with social isolation and stuff. So yeah, that would increase.
Yep, brilliant. Mark?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the children present and the children go to school. I think that it's just another thing to add into the risk assessment, I guess.
Anybody got any thoughts on children and if they're present in the household, if they go to school, whether that's kind of something that increases risk? This is the one that Mark, for interest, this is the one that always creates the most debate. Anybody got any views on that one?
I think if the children,
child's supposed to be at school, they're not at school. You would ask a question about that.
So yep.
I think for me, if children are present and they're at school, then it's a good chance that there are less risks because there's other professionals involved around them that can also identify, if they can see things happening, neglect or anything. Yeah.
Anybody got any views on the age of the children, whether that impacts? You're thinking now.
I think I agree with the comments about the fact that although teachers, it's not their main thing, they're very much tuned in to seeing if there are issues. And you'd assume that primary school, because of the degree of contact between the teaching staff and the children, they're more likely to see. But I think, and also once you're teenagers, they might be sort of used to kind of covering it up. But normally there are relationships in the secondary school, is my experience, where they would be able to come through. So I think probably it's less marks than you might think in terms of what's there. And certainly it's a sort of not too long out of teaching myself. It's certainly very high up the agenda in terms of the focus. And I've always been proud of the fact that looked after children get a really close attention and support. It's always viewed as support and never as a sort of a criticism. So I'd have thought probably primary bit more influence, but not secondary, not as much of a reduction as you might think.
Yeah, I think generally I'd say the idea, if children are in school, I see that as something that reduces the risk, because we know, as people are saying there, that there's other professionals involved, that the school, generally for school age children, the schools are the best placed agency to recognise kind of risk to children and changes in how they present. So that's really good. I always like it when it's always, I worry about preschoolers far more than children at school, because I know that they're less likely to be isolated. The children present in the household, I would say it can work both ways. If you've got say a parent with mental health issues who may have some suicide ideation, to have an older child who would be able to alert people if there was a concern and offer some level of monitoring, that could be a real positive. But equally so, if there's younger children, they might be deemed at risk of all sorts of things if there was an unstable household in any way. So it can go both ways, that one, I always think. Sorry, Hannah, have you got a different one you'd want to talk about?
I think in terms of like responding to messages and phone calls, obviously that if they're not responding, that increases the risk. But I guess it's just deciding whether they're just that kind of person that's not very good at responding to calls, or whether there's a an actual issue.
Yeah.
Don't know. But I guess it increases the risk, doesn't it?
Yeah, generally. Amanda Wilson?
I think if the client was confident, it could reduce the risk. Where if and if they've got an experienced befriender, that would reduce the risk. Whereas if the client was perhaps had low self-esteem, that would increase the risk.
Yep. Lucy?
Sorry. I was thinking as well about the client could present as confident, but sometimes that's quite difficult to know whether someone's just very good at acting. And in reality, you know, they're it's like the swan swimming along, but the fins are paddling below. So I was also looking at the sort of social isolation and good support networks. I think that good support networks reduces the risk. Good social isolation increases the risk. Those two feel really quite clear to me, but someone else might have a, different spin on it.
Thanks, Lucy. Madeline?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was just picking up on the networks one. I was looking at both together, the good support networks and the experienced befriender. I'm sure in the main that would reduce the risk quite a bit. But I suppose the question to ask is the support networks, the client might think they're good support networks. We'd obviously need to understand a bit about where the client would go to for support, and do we consider those good support networks? So it becomes a bit layered, I suppose.
Yeah, thanks, Madeline. And lastly, Amanda.
Yeah, I think for me, when Lucy was saying about the client is confident, I mean, I've actually experienced 2 clients that came across being very together, very confident, very able parents, and yet they were both the ones that tried to commit suicide without any story around it, and they just felt overwhelmed at keeping up that mask all the time, that it just they struggled. So that was my experience with that.
Yeah,
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I've got a current friend who is very confident, for a professional person, try to kill themselves on Sunday night. Yeah. If you'd met them, you think charming, lovely, lovely guy, but he'd had enough.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. So absolutely, you're right. You can't rely on anything, any single specific thing. So if somebody's got good support networks, it doesn't mean that all the risk suddenly evaporates. Equally so, if they're quite isolated, it doesn't mean that they're a huge risk. And we've got to be mindful of that. But I think when I was saying at the start about it not being rocket science, this is what I mean is, so if you've got 2 clients, both with that you're concerned about the same issue with the same 2 clients, and one of them's really isolated, no family support, no professional involvement, not registered with the GP, not confident, doesn't answer the phone, is really bad at answering messages, then you've got another client who's the opposite of that, is really good at responding, does have support networks in place, maybe got a support worker, maybe got the mental health team involved, maybe has got good family and friend support, does have a good relationship with the GP, things like that. If you've got those 2, then you're going to be far more worried about the first one than the latter one. Doesn't mean that we're not worried about the second one, and it doesn't mean that we need to be overly worried about the first. It's just they're the kind of indicators that help to, because often what happen is you get a little bit of information, you've got concerns about somebody, and I know, for example, we get a debt advisor here will maybe take a call from a client, and they will come with an issue, or a bit worried because of what they've said, and then that's all we've got to go on. But then we look at the case record and we think, right, what do we know about this client? Oh, actually, they've got a partner that's living there. They've got a support worker. Well, we've got the details for the support worker. We can always give them a ring and check in with them and ask them to check in with this client. Or the opposite, that we're looking and thinking, actually, there's a number of red flags here about isolation and about lack of support and lack of confidence that would make us worry a little bit more. So they're the kind of things that help you to look when you're looking at those grey areas, really. So yeah, that was the idea of looking at that. We focus there on kind of risk to clients. We're also going to look at risk to you and the befrienders, but we're going to come back to, just in case anybody is thinking about that, we will come back to that in a little bit. So I was just going to move on and just talk about thresholds. So I was saying at the start, we've gone from recording a few incidents a month to now recording between 200 and 250 nationally. And I think that's only going to go up because as we get more and more debt centres and our debt centres get more confident in recording, we find that these things go up. And I wish that people say, oh, is that because we've dropped our threshold so low? And actually, when I go back and look 6 years ago at the kind of things we were recording, they're the same. So we were recording things about suicide ideation, about domestic abuse where people have fled things, all the things that we record, psychosis where it's a bit more serious mental health, all the things that we record now, we were recording then. What that says to me is we've just got really good. We've got good. TPOMS has helped because it's a good system for recording, but it kind of the training of the staff and the staff, the experience we've got here and locally with you and your colleagues is just really good, and people are really kind of tuned into these issues. So the thresholds, I don't hide behind this. They are, I would say, for a charity, we do have quite low thresholds for recording, but that's on the basis that we're working with these clients on an ongoing basis, and context is important. And we find that safeguarding is usually cumulative. So it's very rarely a single one-off event. So somebody might be experiencing some issues, but then they snowball or they come back again, and it's good to have that. So if somebody's if we get a client that rings into us to book in for new inquiries and they tell us that, oh, I've struggled with my mental health, 6 months ago I tried to take an overdose, tried to kill myself via an overdose, I'm feeling a bit better now, but I want to tell you that, we log that, because if you go out then and let's say on your second visit and they're suddenly really low and saying that they're struggling again, then you've got that context that yes, this is somebody who has actually tried to harm themselves in the past. So that kind of is useful to know, because it's a useful indicator, isn't it? So our thresholds are relatively low. So yeah, no, we can move on. So obviously if there's you know, in terms of an emergency, we talked about that. You can, if it's immediate risk, you're going to be looking at that. But what we're thinking about is that other adults, what support we can offer. I hate the word signposting. We'll move on to the next slide, and we'll come back to what we can do in signposting. I don't like that word. I'll tell you why later. So thresholds, it's okay to have them low. I like this graph because what it means is when you're involved and our debt advisors here are involved, we have quite, the threshold's quite low. But if we then referred it to a safeguarding officer, either at your church or somebody here, then the threshold's probably a little bit higher. If then they decided, actually, we need to refer that to another agency, then that's going to be a higher threshold still. If that agency said, for example, social services decided, yeah, we need to do an assessment, then they're going to have an even higher threshold to have reached for that. If they then decide there needs action, there'll be a higher threshold still. So the thresholds go up at each stage. If we started too high, then we'd maybe miss that entry level. So the entry level for having safeguarding concerns and well-being concerns does tend to be quite low, and I think that's okay. It's better to have that and have that entry level in, and rather than miss things. So our responsibilities are just to identify concerns and then refer them on. So that might be that obviously you seek some safeguarding advice from either your church safeguarding officer, or it might come via us, and we refer on. It might be that we're referring on to a statutory agency like Adult Services or Children's Services, but more often it's about supporting clients. So just why we're saying about that, the reason I don't like signposting, sometimes people imply that it's giving somebody a number. Oh, by the way, there's such and such an organisation, give them a ring. Now we know that sometimes our clients have taken a long time to contact CAP. They've had to really build up to, and they don't find it easy to contact agencies. That's not always true, but we know that a lot of our clients, especially clients that are struggling, find that quite difficult. So I think it's quite reasonable to say to people, let's have a look at what support's available. And online referrals are really easy now, or making calls, and we would just encourage and support people with that. So that might be something we could do or you could do. And it's not doing it for them, it's just that initial opening the door. Can we help you open that door? And then they've obviously got to engage with the agency. So that's what we're about. We're not social workers, we're not domestic abuse workers, we're not addiction support workers, we're not mental health specialists. Well, some of you may be, but we're not generally. We're debt workers, aren't we? We're here to provide a debt help service. That's what we're about. If we come across other issues, then what we can do is try and put people in touch with those agencies and organisations that can help with that. And that's what we do a lot of. And that's what I think I'm really proud that CAP do a lot of, both locally and here at Bradford. Okay. So we're going to move on to reporting and recording, if that's all right. You'll need to report. We always ask that you report any concerns you've got to your church safeguarding officer that you've got nominated for your centre. That's just because, for two reasons. One, it would be hard for us to do it all from a central point of view, but also locally, it's good to have your local safeguarding officer may know services and supports locally that we don't know about, and maybe able to offer better advice around that than we could. So we always ask you to do that. If for any reason you can't get hold of your church, your safeguarding officer you've got for your debt centre, and it's urgent, then you can contact me, or you can contact the hub here, and we've got about 15 to 20 safeguarding coordinators that you could ask to speak to, and somebody will speak to you there and then, or get back to you quite quickly, because we don't want you on your own about that. So there's always that safety net. Now, what we do ask you to do is then record it on CPOMs, and it's really important that we both sides do that, because we're working with the same clients. So if we identify a concern, if, for example, at new inquiries, when the client books in, if they share some issues, gets logged on CPOMs, you get an alert with all that information, so you can read it, and you can read the advice I've put on, or somebody's put on here, because you need to know. Likewise, obviously, if you pick up on something, even if you've got some safeguarding advice from your local safeguarding officer at your centre, then we obviously still need it on CPOMs, because the next week we may take a call from that client, and it might be a similar issue, and it really, we need to know. You could go off on leave, you could be off ill, you could leave, the client could move areas, lots of things could happen, and we need to have that record, because often with DMP clients, we'll continue to work with them, whereas your involvement may drop off, or just being at annual reviews. So we kind of share that. And to be honest, our debt centre staff never query that. We've had a few queries from churches and from diocesanes saying, do you really need to have all this information? And yeah, because we're all working with these same clients, so we need to. And the good thing about CPOMs is that it's obviously confident. It's not on the HOPE record or the DHB record. It's confidential, it's separate, and it's only accessed by people that need to see that. Yeah, Madeline.
Quick question. If I was looking at CPOMs yesterday when I was doing the training, just a reminder, if the initial call, something gets brought up that gets then logged centrally at the head office, Will we get some flag notification, push notification before we go, or do we have to go in?
100%, yeah. So every incident that's logged on CPOMs, either myself or my assistant, who I haven't got one of, I'm interviewing tomorrow for a new safeguarding advisor to support me. But everything we see them all, and we add an action to them all, and then it comes to you. So I always alert whoever submitted the incident and the debt centre. So if you obviously submit it, then I might add something and send something back to you. But if we've logged it, it will come to you. So what you do is you get an email. You'll get an email from CPOM saying you've got a new incident in your dashboard, and then you can click on it, or you can go in and log in, and you can read it. Now, while we're talking about this, I'll cover this now. Once you've read it and clicked that you've read it, there's a tab that says confirm read, or I can't remember what the terminology is now. But once you've clicked that, it will still show in your dashboard, but it won't let you open it again. And the reason being, it's safeguarding records, and otherwise it would stay in your dashboard forever, and we'd have thousands of records in hundreds of people's dashboards forever, and that's not safeguarding records. So once you click, and I do need you to click that you've read it, because that's the only thing that tells me that you've read it. So if I've sent you something saying there's a bit of a risk about this client, they've told us that they've got offences for physical violence, we need to do a risk assessment, here's a probation officer's number, one of us needs to talk to probation, or a psychosis, kind of more serious psychosis issue where we've got real risks that we just need to check on before you visit, then obviously I need to know that you've seen that. And the best way is obviously you've clicked that you've read it, and then I can see on the audit trail that you've read it. But you won't be able to read it again, and there's just no way around that. The only thing you can do, so if you need to reread something, you just need to email me and I'll send you a new alert. It takes me seconds, and I really don't mind. It's not a big demand, but it's this crops up. For example, if we booked you in to see a client in 2 months' time, we put a CPOMs on, I send you an alert, you read it, and then a week before your visit, you're thinking, right, I just need to read up on that client before I go and see them. Oh, I can't remember exactly what was on CPOMs. Just email me, I'll send you a new alert. And safeguarding coordinators here can do it as well if I'm off. And then you can reread it. Unfortunately, there's no way around that. So that's CPOMs. We're going to have a quick look at the end if we've got a quarter of an hour. So that's we'll move on from thresholds. So I'm going to set, while we're on CPOMs, then I'll show you CPOMs, then we're going to come back to risk assessments around your safety, if that's all right. So Emily's going to stop sharing, and I'm going to start sharing, I believe. Sorry. Share. So this isn't my CPOMs record. This is actually Sarah Roxford's, who works in HR, and I set one up for her just so because mine's different to yours, and apart from the fact you'll see lots of things that you shouldn't see, because it's got lots of more detail in, but it's not helpful. So this, when you log in, this is what should come up, I believe, for you. I know some of you have logged in already. Does anybody need me to show you how to log in, or are people okay with that? If people are having trouble individually logging in, just message me and I'll send you the quick hint solution to that. So on CPOMs, you go into student safe, which is the staff safe one, where we log things about concerns we've got about colleagues. But this is what a dashboard looks like. So in the dashboard, if you're adding a new incident, it's that button at the top. So if you click on add incident and then type in, so if I put in my name, you would see that it comes up with my name and new student. What that tells you is by the reason it's student, by the way, is because CPOMs were set up for schools and educational establishments, colleges. So they use the term students. We've brought in their system, which is fine, but we can't change the term student to person of concern, client, whatever we wanted it to be. We're stuck with that. So student means the person that you're worried about. So if you type my name in, it comes up with my name and new student. What that means is there isn't a CPOMs record in our CPOM site on me, or somebody with my name anyway. So that's if it was a new client and you thought they weren't on CPOMs, when you type in the name, it should come up with their name and new student, and you click on it and it sets their name in there. And then all you do is type in the concern there. So you might type visited client who shared, I'll only type one line. Client who shared recent suicide ideation. And you might go on about kind of they had booked to see their GP. So that tells you it's kind of going to be, we're going to deem that quite low risk because it's just ideation. They haven't got a plan, but it could be any, whatever you're typing in there. My advice is try and keep it short because you don't want to be spending loads of time. So nice and short. And if you've taken any actions, for example, if you've spoken to your safeguarding coordinator and they've said, no, we just need to monitor, put that in, please. If you spoke to your safeguarding coordinator and they've said, oh, we need to do a referral to such and such an agency, then please put in that you've done that. Then at least we know and we're not duplicating anything. I don't duplicate. So if you've already got advice from a safeguarding officer, I might add something in saying, oh yeah, I agree with that. But and I don't need to suggest anything else. If I spot something actually from my experience, I could also suggest this, then I can add that on as well. So you put in the name, the type, the text of the incident, and then it's the first three that you tend to be the clicky ones, or the first four. So area of concern, if you bring that up, you can see there, that's got all the different types of concern we might log. Some of them we use a lot, some of them, and we add to these. So I think the grooming one we only added recently, harassment we hadn't got on originally. There's a few we've added. So if there's something that starts to crop up, we might add a new one. You can tick as many of those as you want. So if there's a number of issues impacting a client or a household, you can tick all of as many as needed. It doesn't, you've got to, we obviously would like you to tick one, but you can tick as many as you need to. The person of concern one, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be the debt client. It might also be, if there's a child, say it was about domestic abuse, there might be a child. If it was an adult child, non-dependent, or another member, a parent or something, you might be a family member, you could tick, but they're the ones that you would generally take. Service delivery hub is where the client is, so it's where you are. So if you're in Scotland, the Northwest hub, Northeast hub, you tick the one for that. And safeguarding coordinator, if you'd spoken to the church safeguarding officer, tick that one. If you'd actually rung in and spoke to me or somebody else who's on that list, you could tick them. It doesn't matter. I'll just come back to the screen in a minute. It doesn't matter if you don't tick them all. It won't let you submit it unless you've ticked at least one of those four categories. So you've got to have done each one, and we do quality assure it. So if you've forgotten to do the area, the service delivery hub, the area, the geographical area one, then we'll do it. Please don't worry about that. Obviously, the more you can do, the better. The other thing, if I just come back, the last thing to go back to is, if you were putting in a name, I'm going to put in a different name now. Sorry. Actually, I'm going to get rid of that. Let me. So yeah, so I'm going to put in a different name. Oop, I'll put in Michael, because I know Michael's obviously a client of ours, or has been in the past. So we've got a CPOMS record on Michael Wrench. So if we've already got a CPOMS record on them, which you should know from the Hope record, because there's a key issue flagged on Hope, it should come up with that. Rather than new student, it says no child, young person. If you click on that and it sets the name, it'll either come up with one or the other, depending on whether, I'm going to go back now, whether we've already got a CPOMS record on them. So as I say, add clap. So you go in really, really briefly. I didn't show the end bit. Add an incident, get the name set in there, a bit of text about what the concern's about, tick any of the areas that you can, please. And then that's it. Then you go to the bottom and click on submit incident. You don't need to do anything else. There is an element there, agency involved. So if you know the mental health team's involved, or they've already got addiction support from a local agency or domestic abuse support, we have got a load listed in there. So you can add those, but don't worry about that. The key things to have the name in, the concern you've got, and then tick some of those boxes, and then submit incident. As soon as you've done that, it will come through to me. So it comes into my dashboard, and either myself or say my assistant will process that. I'm going to take that off so I can see you all again now. Let me stop sharing and see if there's any questions around that. Amanda.
Yeah, so if you have any evidence, so let's say the police got involved in the situation, and I had to write a statement, do I have to include evidence, just that statement over to you, so you're fully aware of that?
No, I think if you were saying, look, there'd been an incident, the police were called, then if you said there was an incident of violence, or there was an incident around this, or whatever it was, just briefly, you don't need to record all the details, because what we'd be doing is noting, right, yes, there was an incident, but the police were involved. So the police are dealing with that. We don't need to do anything, but we've got a record that there had been an incident. Yeah. If you've got, sorry, I didn't show you when you were on. Can you stop presenting again? I'll show you again. Sorry.
Thinking of time back.
Sorry.
Thinking of time.
Yeah, I'll take 30 seconds over this. We've got 5 minutes. Then I'll talk about risk. Yeah. So on the CPOMS, if you click on that, click on the incident form, click to browse or drag. You can, if you've written a statement, say sometimes people will write a short report for their church safeguarding officer. If you've got that as a document, you think, well, actually, it would help just to load that up. Or you've got a medical letter that actually has got information about their mental health that we would store on Hope as well. Then you can download it and add it. So if you just click on that, and then it'll go into your downloaded documents, and you can click on it, and it will save the document. So if you have got a document, say if you've done a police report and you had a copy of it, for example, then there's no reason why you couldn't just attach that rather than rewriting it all. Sorry.
Thanks.
Right, I need to move on. If people have got questions that come up with that, just email me afterwards. So if anything you think about anything afterwards, or anything tomorrow, next week, next month, whenever, just email me. I am quite good at getting back to people. If it's urgent, ring me, because I'll pick up on that. Emails, I might take a few days sometimes, depending on how busy I am. So yeah, just going to look at we've got 5 minutes, so we're going to look at risk. So if the types of incident, say they're listed there on CPOMS. So we do log a lot on domestic abuse, a lot on mental health and suicide, and a lot on financial abuse. They're the kind of really big ones that we log a lot on. Anyway, we're going to move on. So Emily's going to send you the slides after this, so you will have these links, so you don't need to worry about that. Where we've identified a risk, a more serious risk, so say somebody books in and tells us that they've just come out of prison, they've got a probation officer, they've got serious mental illness, or there's something else that we think that's a potential risk, possibly to them and to you, then we'll flag that on CPOMS. I'll alert you, and then within that, I'll be saying, right, this is what I think we need to do. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to do it? For example, say we've got somebody who tells us that they've got an offence that we need to check out, and they've got probation involved, and they give us the details of the probation officer. I will say, do you want me to talk to the probation officer, or do you want to do it? And that's either way is fine. There's not we've got some debt centre managers that are really experienced and know the local probation officers and say, yeah, no, it's so and so, I know them. I'll give them a ring and chat to them. That's absolutely fine. If you prefer us to do it, that's fine. Sometimes we need to ring the client back to get a bit more information. They might not have shared the probation officer's details, for example, or another professional, and we might need to ring them back again. I'm quite happy whether it's me or you doing that. But we've got forms there. So there's where we've identified a risk, and we've done that. There are some risk assessment forms. So firstly, there's a risk assessment form on clients, and then there's a risk assessment form on the venue, depending on whether you decide, yeah, a home visit could go ahead, or no, we want to meet at the debt centre or somewhere else. There's actually a guidance document. I will, at the end of this, Emily, I will add the whole guidance document to this slide. And then, so there's this document that's got risk assessment guidance and then links to all the forms, and it takes you through it. So we're not suggesting we do that on every client. That's where there's a more serious risk, and we just need to check it out. And we work together doing that, is the plan. But I will attach that to it, so you can read that through in more detail. And then there is some more general guidance that you're given about just general safety on normal visits. I'm going to stop there because we've got 2 minutes, and people might want to ask things. So is there anything that, I say, you can email me afterwards and follow up on anything, or if you ever want to chat about anything, please do give me a ring. I often get calls from debt coaches, and as I'm driving home, I've got some that ring me, and that's fine. I assume if you're ringing me, it's because you need to speak to me. So if I can, I will take the call. If not, I'll ring you back as soon as possible afterwards. I assume people won't ring me unless they really need to. So that's fine. If you just want some general advice about things, then just email me. I'm happy to assist with anything. Has anybody got any burning questions they want to ask now? Yeah, Madeline?
It's probably one I missed yesterday. Sorry about that, but quick link to CPOMS. Is it from Resource Hub? I was just trying to find it now. Where do you link for it, or do you have to go through the email that you sent us?
No, I would use that email and then save the icon to your
okay. There's not a link from Resource Hub.
No, it's because it's a separate app that we bought in, the system that we bought in, so it's kind of not linked into any of the CAP stuff. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your positive contributions, and you're obviously a very, very kind of well-educated safeguarding bunch. It's really clear, so that's really, really great to hear. Thank you. But key thing is, please don't think you're alone. It's really, it's really trying dealing with emotional and stressful issues that the clients raise. So please don't keep things to yourself. Reach out for support, whether that's from us or from your church. Yeah, thank you.